someone in need. Be the one you want yourself to be. It's about human kindness. It's about the way. It's about your love. It's about your day. It's about your heart. It's about who you call. It's about who you love. Who you give your heart. It's about love. It's about love. It's about
Commissioner, Mr. President, I rise again, I'm afraid, to make the same old hoary speech that I've been making here for several years, and that is, it is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal and it's been going on for too long. To add to that problem, you have moral hazard, a very significant moral hazard from the political sphere. And most of the problem starts in politics and central banks, which are part of the same political system. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. Central banks repress the amount of interest that rates are, so we don't have the real cost of money. And yet we blame the real retail banks for manipulating LIBOR. The sheer effrontery of this is quite astonishing. It's central banks that manipulate interest rates, Commissioner. And plus, underneath all this, we talk loosely, in a rather cavalier fashion, do we not, about deposit guarantees. So when banks go broke through their own incompetence and chicanery, the taxpayer picks up the tab. It's theft from the taxpayer. And until we start sending bankers, and I include central bankers and politicians, to prison for this outrage, it will continue.
Well, if they were going to be negative for a long time, you better own equities, or you better own something other than debt. I mean, it's remarkable what's happened in the last 10 years. I've been wrong in thinking that you could really have the developments you've had without inflation taking hold. But we have 120 odd billion. Well, we have some almost very high percentage in treasury bills, some in other, and some just in cash. But those treasury bills are paying us virtually nothing. Now, they're a terrible investment over time, but they are the one thing that when opportunity arises, it will arise at a time, and maybe the only thing you can look to pay for those opportunities is the treasury bills you have. I mean, the rest of the world may have stopped. And we also need them to be sure that we can pay the liabilities we have in terms of policyholders over time, and we take that very seriously. So if the world turns into a world where you can issue more and more money and have negative interest rates over time. I'd have to see it to believe it, but I've seen a little bit of it. I've been surprised, so I've been wrong so far. I do not think that. I don't see how you can create. I would say this: if you can have negative interest rates and pour out money and incur more and more debt relative to productive capacity, you'd think the world would have discovered it in the first couple thousand years rather than just coming on it now. But we will see. It's one of the it's probably the most interesting question I've ever seen in economics. Is can you keep doing what we're doing now? And we've been able to do it. Or the world's been able to do it for now a dozen years or so. But we may be facing a period where we're testing that hypothesis that you can continue it with a lot more force than we've tested it before.
I'd like to get rid of the Federal Reserve too. I would like to have money controlled by a computer. However, that's not what's happening, and I'm a realist. You're going to have a Federal Reserve System, and therefore it's relevant to ask, given that there is a Federal Reserve System, even though it'd be a better world if we could get rid of them, how should Federal Reserve operate?
Simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we, as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally. And we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities. And that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
That part away? A person who really understands the fun of cars?
What about an attack?
An attack? What kind of attack?
Like
you
think about you pull out your debit card, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, no one's debit card works.
Oh yeah, right? What's gonna stop that from happening? What do you do with no money?
Because there's only 3% that's real cash. That's real, like palpable.
So if everybody wanted all the paper for all the money they have in the bank, we would never be able to do it.
If everybody's debit card stopped working, it would fucking...
How much cash is there out there, right?
I have no idea.
Like, how much cash is there out there now in comparison to like the 80s when there was only cash?
It's probably the same amount. It's probably the same amount.
But most people use credit cards now, right? Like way more.
Yeah, but think about if we had an enemy that wanted to say
no more
or
cash.
even our own government that's just like all technology monetary wise is cut off.
Yeah, they just killed the system. They just stopped it all. No more banks, no more banking, no more ATMs.
What are you gonna do?
You don't have any money.
Nobody has any money. You can't buy food. You can't buy anything. So you have to steal, and then
all your money is locked up.
Chairman Crapo, Ranking Member Brown, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Peter Van Valkenburg, and I'm the Director of Research at Coin Center, an independent nonprofit focused on the public policy issues affecting cryptocurrency and public blockchain networks. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the world's first cryptocurrency, and it works because of the world's first public blockchain network. What does Bitcoin do? It's simple. It lets you send and receive value to and from anyone in the world using nothing more than a computer and an internet connection. Now, why is it revolutionary? Because unlike every other tool for sending money over the internet, it works without the need to trust a middleman. The lack of any corporation in between means that Bitcoin is the world's first public digital payments infrastructure. And by public, I simply mean available to all and not owned by any single entity. Now, we have public infrastructure for information, for websites, for email. It's called the internet. But the only public payments infrastructure that we have is cash, as in paper money. And it only works in face-to-face transactions. Before Bitcoin, if you wanted to pay someone remotely, over the phone or the internet, then you could not use public infrastructure. You would rely on a private bank to open their books and add a ledger entry that debits you and credits the person you're paying. And if you both don't use the same bank, well, then there'll be multiple banks and multiple ledger entries in between. With Bitcoin, the ledger is the public blockchain, and anyone can add an entry to that ledger, transferring their Bitcoins to someone else. And anyone, regardless of their nationality, race, religion, gender, sex, or creditworthiness, can for absolutely no cost create a Bitcoin address in order to receive payments digitally. Bitcoin is the world's first globally accessible public money. Is it perfect? No. Neither was email when it was invented in 1972. Bitcoin's not the best money on every margin. It's not yet accepted everywhere. It's not used often to quote prices, and it's not always a stable store of value. But it is working, and the mere fact that it works without trusted intermediaries is amazing. It's a computer science breakthrough, and it will be as significant for freedom, prosperity, and human flourishing as the birth of the internet.
So children being born today will not use paper or metal money. We have to think about what kind of cashless society do you want to live in? Do you want your children to live in? Think about when you buy something from a corner store with cash. The merchant does not know your name, your address, what the last thing you bought, maybe what you're most likely to buy next. And you know what? They didn't need to know any of that. That was fine. But now this is being taken away from us by corporations and governments who insist that for our security, they need to know everything about us. I think this is nonsense, and I think we need to fight back. And thankfully, about a decade ago, some group of people came up with a way out. If you look at the evolution of money, from when we used to have a barter system through shells, through precious metals stamped with king's faces on them, to paper money, and now to credit cards and mobile payments, someone created another way to have a money system without a central authority, and that is Bitcoin. We think about the way digital payments work today, and again, all payments will be digital. There's a third party in the middle, whether it's Visa, Venmo, PayPal, WeChat. Someone in the middle can freeze your transaction, confiscate your funds, surveil and spy on you. With Bitcoin, your transaction is completely peer-to-peer. The payment processing is done by a decentralized global competition and not by an entity. This is a revolutionary step in human history.
The last 6 months have been weird for all of us. And we watched this incredible run-up in the price, and it dominated the conversation. Now, if you've been in this space for a while, this isn't new to you, right? You've seen this happen. This is maybe the 6th, 7th, maybe 8th big bubble-like behavior where you see this massive increase in price. And we've seen it before. I remember at some point in October, I started getting calls from journalists, and they asked me to comment on this. And they would ask in a very kind of cagey way, so what do you think? Could this possibly maybe be a bubble? I was like, of course it's a bubble. We're living in the era of the everything bubble. But really, it's not the Bitcoin bubble you should be worried about that everybody is very aware of. I'd be more worried about the subprime auto loan bubble, the stock bubble, the bond bubble, the real estate bubble, the student loan bubble, the debt bubble, the foreign exchange bubble, the FANG bubble, the tech bubble, the everything bubble. I think many of you have probably had this experience. You come into this space, you don't know what's going on. It's all very, very weird and complicated and difficult to understand. You find someone who can explain some detail to you, and you start barely understanding some of the things around you. And then you suddenly realize that even though you are quite aware you don't know what the hell is going on in this Bitcoin space, or in the related space, the entire cryptocurrency space, to everyone you know, you're the expert. And they come to you and they go, you know about Bitcoin. Should I invest in IOTA? Or, you know about Bitcoin, is this a good time to get in? And maybe you told them when the price was, I don't know, 200, and they ignored you because they thought it was silly internet money. But the morning that it hits 19,000, they call you up and they go, is this a good time to get in? And depending on whether they're a good friend, in which case you say, hell no, wait, or they're that douchebag who bullied you in high school, in which case you're like, yeah, now's the time to get in, Chad. You wouldn't do that, of course. Everyone in this theater is wonderful. We wouldn't do that. But the best part, after you told them to get in at 200 and they ignored you and they called you up at 19,000, in January and February, you start getting the calls, I know you've had them, where someone calls you up and they go, are you okay? I saw on CNBC that Bitcoin crashed. It's destroyed, it's gone, it's down in the doldrums, it's a mess. Are you okay? Now, let's not minimize the fact that a lot of people who did get in at 19,000, probably in a very ill-advised way, are hurting. And that's not funny. That's bad investment decisions, and you should be very, very careful. These things are extremely volatile, but it is extremely ironic when people call you up and they go, are you okay? Because we heard it crashed a year ago. We were just over 1,000. So price-wise, we're up a cool 800%. So your answer should probably be, you're in S&P index funds. Are you okay? Because the day I start hearing about your investment on TV, you won't be okay. Nobody will be okay. And so you see, even my talk here, dominated by price, not something you hear me talk about a lot, but it's apropos, it's the times we're in. And then suddenly, the price tanks, the meetups start getting roomy again, the phone calls stop, some people start laughing at you again, because they're like, I told you it was crazy magic internet money that would crash. And the cycle repeats. Do you guys like farmers markets? Anybody here like farmers market? If you go to a farmers market this weekend, they're going to have two things. Rhubarb and pumpkins. Because it's winter. And you're not going to find a great array of beautiful organic vegetables. Those come from Mexico at this time of the year. The farmers, the local farmers market, all they can deliver at this time of year is rhubarb. And in a great analogy to the economic situation we're in, if you went to the farmer's market right now and noticed it's not very popular and there aren't too many people there, you might go, farming is dead. I knew it. I saw it on CNBC.
Now, let me just basically say how impressed I am with Ethereum, full stop, period. And that when I think about this as a regulator, I think of it almost analogized to email versus the internet. If Bitcoin is email, a one-trick pony, so to speak, but obviously revolutionary, Ethereum goes far beyond that. It's more like the internet.
The stock market, you say it always goes up? It's like that 45-degree angle.
Correct.
Since 1971, direct 45-degree angle, a couple of drops, whatever, but straight up. That's because it's denominated in dollars. They're just devaluing the dollar, right? Stocks go up. If you denominate that same stock market in gold, the stock market's down since 1971. The stock market is a complete scam in terms of accruing value. It's all the dollar being devalued. So it goes straight up 45-degree angle, but if you denominate it in ounces of gold, it's down.
Okay.
So, well,
different language.
No, here's why it's important.
You go to mine gold.
No, here's why it's important. You bought a house, right? In where?
A lot of places.
Nantucket.
Yeah, I have one there. Yes.
Okay. Why'd you buy that house in Nantucket?
I love that place.
Okay.
I loved it. That's not something I was trying to get. Like, I thought I'd live there the rest of my life.
Okay. And there wasn't that many to select from, right?
Yes.
Okay. And because there's not that many, the prices are expensive, and you have a lot of money, so you could buy it.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Same thing in the digital world is there's some things that are just scarce. And if those things end up having a large community that wants them, what ends up happening? The price goes up.
Go up, correct.
Okay. So Bitcoin's only got 21 million, obviously. And the whole thing behind it is the strongest computing power in the world. So literally the computer network that runs Bitcoin is stronger than anything in the world. No government, nobody can hack it because it is the strongest computing network in the world. It's got more computing power on it than anything else. So rather than the government saying, hey, today we're going to print more money, or remember what happened today with Penn, where they just all of a sudden, all these new shares, right?
Yep.
You're like, fuck, what the hell? Like, I had no say in this.
Right.
That's basically what the Federal Reserve does. So earlier this year, they printed $3+ trillion. You didn't get a vote, I didn't get a vote. It's just, fuck, okay. Whatever cash you have is going to be worth less next year, right? Because the purchasing power goes down. And so what ends up happening is you're financially incentivized to get out of the dollar and buy stocks, buy gold, buy fucking property, whatever. But with Bitcoin, they can't do that. The reason why it becomes so valuable is because nobody can fuck with it. And that's why the Bitcoiners are so rabid about it, is they're just like, look, it doesn't matter what anybody says, what you think, I think, anybody. Nobody can fuck with it.
I'm a baby boomer. I was born just after the war. We've probably had the longest period of peace and prosperity globally, I would say, from that time. I've put a little bit of modest money away so I can hand something down to my family when I pass on, largely because I've never spent more money than I've earned, and I've been prudent, and I've worked moderately hard. Now, it always seems to me as a complete surprise to politicians how countries get in debt. Let me explain, because I don't think you really understand it. It's because politicians consistently spend more money than they raise in taxation, more money than they can possibly raise in taxation, most of which, in point of fact, they actually waste. The reason we're talking about countries which are broke, and they are broke, is because they're ridiculous, ineffective, ignorant politicians consistently spend more money than they can raise. And then they borrow, and they borrow, and worse, they then print money because politicians and their central banks have a machine which prints money. You do that as a private citizen, and it's a criminal offence. You would go to prison for doing that, and politicians and their central banks do it all the time. Let me explain to you that these countries are broke, and they're broke because of their own stupid leadership and politicians, and it's immoral to ask ordinary taxpayers of any country to pick up the tab for failed politicians and failed banks. They are defaulted, they're broke. For God's sake, let's all of us admit it.
Do whatever the fuck you want. I love you. I love you so much. Thank you for joining me. I had such a blast with you today. Let's making some shit up. You know I'll be back. I can't get away from you. I have to keep playing for you. I can't get enough of it. This is one of my happiest moments right here. So I keep coming back to it. And I just love you very, very much. I hope each and every one of you have a lovely day, lovely afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. Enjoy yourself. Most importantly, love each other. Love each other, be good to each other, and help each other when you need it. Okay? Be good to each other. And you get it back in return. It's all about that at the end of the day. Love, happiness, togetherness. That's what the fuck we're talking about. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.